It's lovely to see so many of you here, as my previous speaker said, and taking the opportunity of having a productive afternoon with us. Thank you very much for having us. The opportunity to be here this afternoon is wonderful for us. Lilian and I are both teachers. As we were introduced to you, I'm actually a history teacher at an all-girls school not too far from here in Senderwood in Bedfordview. And Lil is the head of IT at St. Mary's Girls' School in Waverley. So we're actually on holiday. So being here for us is keeping our brains active. But thank you very much for the opportunity. We're really excited to share some of our knowledge with you today. The reason we're here is that our core business as teachers is to really inspire the kids in our classes, number one. But what Lil and I spend a lot of our free time doing is training other teachers to do the same in their classes. I think we're all aware in this room, whether we are managers of schools, whether we are school governing bodies, whether we are corporate funders, that crisis the crisis in the current state of education in South Africa. And what's so wonderful about Kagan and what we're going to share with you this afternoon is that it's accessible across so many grades, subjects, and it doesn't require A, IT, B, huge amounts of manipulatives. It just is about creating engagement, and that's what we're going to start today. Okay, to get us all engaged, and this is all about engagement, we're going to start with our first structure, which is something called a take-off touchdown, just so that we can get to know the room, who's in the room, and then we can try and meet your needs. We are very used to dealing with teachers specifically, so when we heard about today's opportunity, we were really excited about being able to make contact with school leaders and corporate funders, as well as teachers. So for us to get an idea of what the room looks like and who's in it, we're going to start with the take-off touchdown. This is how it works. I'm going to make a statement, and if the statement applies to you, you need to take off, and that means just stand up, so we can get a sense of who's in the room and what your experience is in what part of education. Once we've seen and we've sort of made contact with those people, if you could sit down again, and then I'll make a new statement. Again, if it applies to you, if you could stand up and we can get a sense of who you are. Okay, so the first one I have is, who of you in the room like to start off the day with a good cup of coffee or tea? If you can stand up, please. Okay, so there are our caffeine addicts. Welcome to the room. Very nice to see you. Thank you. You can sit down. I thought I would have a few friendly faces. The next one is, can we stand up, leaders of schools, school management? I think your jobs are incredibly difficult, so a round of applause for our school leaders, please. Those are fantastic. Thank you. Could you take off if you are from a corporate environment or corporate funder? Only person, that needs a big round of applause. Thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind taking off if you are a teacher. Now the biggest round of applause needs to go to these people. Thank you. Thank you. Good. Thank you. All right, so first, why Kagan Cooperative Learning? And first thing you need to know is that both Lil and I run cooperative learning classrooms, and they are all specifically around trying to get kids engaged. The teachers in the room will know that feeling, that a third of your room is with you, the other third is in and out, and the other third couldn't give a damn. So we try and create classrooms that are completely engaged, and Kagan Cooperative Learning is specifically about engagement. So that's point number one that we want to try and get across to you. The other one is about 21st century skills. I'm sure the teachers in the room and the educators, leaders in the room will understand this concept of 21st century skills. And Kagan is very fixated on that, luckily enough. So the kinds of things we try, or the kinds of things that Kagan gets right in classrooms, are those important C buzzwords that we all hear so much about. In fact, as teachers get so sick and tired of hearing these buzzwords, but Kagan actually achieves that incredibly well. So what you will see are skills around communication, getting kids to engage with each other, and we all know why, that they don't talk to each other, they talk to their screens. Being much more creative in their thinking. So creativity is the other one that Kagan encourages. Collaboration is the ability to be able to work together, because the workplace is no longer a single space. It's it's a minefield of having to work together with different kinds of people. And so you will see a bit of that today. And the other thing is around critical thinking. And a lot of people don't even know what critical thinking is. We'll try and help you a little bit with that today as well. So those are the 21st century skills that we're going to try and show you a little bit more about today. The other thing about Kagan Cooperative Learning is about brain science. And what Kagan Cooperative Learning does is that it specifically, well, actually I'll let Lil run you through this because she's the real brain science genius. So over to you.
Not really genius, but really just kind of that idea about the brain and getting the brain to actively engage. So in all of our classes and all of our learning, when we're learning, we want as many neurons to be firing as possible. And so in order to do that, what's really, really important is that we're creating an environment where students are feeling safe. Because if you're feeling safe, then your amygdala is not going, the cortisol is not running through your body, and you have an opportunity to, if you're feeling safe, you have more of an opportunity to take risks. And this is a simple example, and I have to take it. But you were asked a question of what is cooperative learning, or what is that idea of what do you expect today? And that idea of having to answer a question in front of a room full of people or colleagues, that's taking a risk. And that's what we expect of our students every single day, to take risks and to engage. So it's that idea of what we're hoping to do today is to build some safety that you have the opportunity to take those risks, and that's what we want for our kids. The other thing that's really important that we know about our brains is that it needs nourishment. So I'm going to have to ask Gail to be my props. So if I can please ask you to just, if you can put your pens down and make two fists with your hands, and just put them together. So just like Gail taking two fists, put them together. That is the size of your brain. So you can maybe have a look at your partners. Some of you might be a little bit disappointed. Some of you looking quite chuffed. All right, but that is effectively the size of your brain. And that 1.5 kg organ needs 20 to 25% of our oxygen and glucose in order to function. So it needs a lot of brain nutrients, and the idea is most of our classrooms, what are our students doing? They're sitting. And that idea of how do we get the brain functioning and moving is we have to get them moving around, we have to get them. So even that simple example of a takeoff, touchdown, that idea of taking off, touching down, taking off, just stimulates blood and oxygen and gets oxygen and glucose to the brain. And the other important thing is, Gail spoke about screen time, is that students are permanently looking for variety. They're permanently looking for something new. So it's important that we're giving them different ways to engage with material. So that again is where the research is at. And I'm going to pass over to Gail again to talk about this idea of the core philosophy or principles behind the cooperative learning structures. And the question that was asked is, okay, well, what is cooperative learning? And I remember being asked that question, cooperative learning is when you kind of work with someone and you turn and talk, or you get them into groups and you do group work. And we know how much students love group work. They hate it. And that idea of that structure. So where Gail's going to take you now is, again, why Kagan Cooperative Learning is because we want to understand the difference between just group work where we're hoping that students will collaborate and where we're actually creating structures where we know that they're collaborating.
Okay, thanks, Lil. So just to let you know, you can see our lovely posters here. Kagan has some principles that have to be present in order for an activity, or what we call a structure. In order for that to be cooperative learning and not group work, we have to apply the following principles. So we at Kagan talk about looking at an activity with a PIES lens on. And so the acronym that we use, PIES or PIES. So our basic principles are first the P, which is positive interdependence. And so our activities or our structures in a cooperative learning classroom force children to need each other, or the word force is probably inaccurate. What it does is it provides opportunity for kids to need each other. So it's about, when they share ideas together, does one idea help you stimulate another idea? Or did you hear something that perhaps you didn't hear or didn't think of before? So our structures create a positive interdependence where children will feel as if they need each other and they'll feel like they're on the same side. So you'll find cooperative learning classrooms are very cohesive environments. The next one is I, for individual accountability, which just means children then become accountable for something. They tend to not be able to hide. So those of us that are involved in teaching, you always find the kids that just disappear into the ether, and they develop incredible techniques to hide and not be called upon or have to engage. Whereas our structures encourage that individual accountability where everybody is responsible for something. The next one is the E, or the equal participation. You'll see when we try some of these now that we create equal time or equal turns, so that every child feels like they have an equal status. It's not only the bright kid who's raising their hand, or it's not only that troublemaker who tries to distract you with questions. Everybody has an equal status in your classroom, so that's equal participation. And the last one is the S, or the simultaneous interaction. So in a Kagan cooperative classroom, you'll find that we try and maximize participation. If you know how education was modeled for all of us in this room, young or old, was that we always called on one. And I still do it. I pose a question, one kid puts up their hand, that kid answers the question. If it's right, I praise. If it's not, I'll rephrase the question, call on another one, and that's how we teach. But if the little one is hiding in the back or has disengaged, they haven't thought or heard a single thing that's happened, and actually they haven't done any learning. So the simultaneous interaction is about getting as many kids writing or reading or interacting as possible. So those are the cooperative learning principles, and we'll give you a bit more experience about that.
So yeah, with this, we're just hoping that through all of this, we're getting our students to ask better questions, to critically analyze, and to work on their problem-solving skills. So we've spoken about this engagement. Great. How do we get active engagement? So this idea of, okay, well, what is active engagement? The formula that we use is quite a simple one. It's just content plus structure. Okay. What is the content? Well, the content is whatever you are currently working on with your students at the time. So you could be teaching grade noughts, and you could be working with manipulatives. It could be the first time they're looking at numbers. The content might be textual analysis. The content might be higher order questions or higher order thinking. It doesn't matter what the content is, but you take whatever content you are currently working on with your students, what they are learning, and you add a structure. And a structure is simply a tool that we can use as teachers to facilitate learning. And Kagan has put together a set of steps that we can follow to make this happen. All right, now comes the fun part, cooperative learning. We don't want to tell you about this. We want you to experience this. So the idea is that over the next while, and keeping in the back of your mind this idea, what do students feel? What is it that you are going to be feeling in the next little while in the structure? So the first structure that we're going to teach you is mix, pair, share. And I think I'm handing back to Gail.
Just let you know, Kagan has about 250 structures. I currently probably use about 15 out of the 250. And the aim is to not use as many. The aim is to use one well and then use it in different ways. So the first one is an everyday, we call it an everyday back pocket structure. In other words, I'll use what we call a mix, pair, share multiple times in a day, sometimes multiple times in a lesson. So you'll see, if you keep in mind things like nourishment of the brain, which need oxygen and glucose, variety, all of those, that brain science that Lil spoke about at the beginning, and experience it with us. But we're going to have to ask you to let go of your inhibitions and understand that the children in your classes, or even if you're on school leadership, if you run cooperative learning meetings, if you're a corporate funder, if you are speaking to funders and trying to get them engaged and experience, the same principles apply. So it initially might feel uncomfortable, but it's about stimulating, and we call it making episodes of learning, so that we're very deliberate about how we run our classrooms. Okay, so this is how a mix, pair, share works. First of all, I'm going to ask you to mix around the room. And we've got this lovely big space here, so try and get out of your nice, neat lines. In fact, our classrooms will never look like this. So just leave your personal belongings behind. But not yet. Under your chair is a whiteboard and a marker. If you wouldn't mind just putting your personal belongings in your bag or on the floor under your chair, and replace it with a whiteboard and a whiteboard marker that's under your chair on the floor. So all you need in your hands is your whiteboard and your whiteboard marker. Just test that your whiteboard marker is working. Okay, and this is how it works. Okay, I'll let everyone get themselves together. So you just need your whiteboard and your whiteboard marker. You can leave all your other personal belongings under your chair or next to you. We're going to play some music. If you know anything about children, they love music. They'll remember every single word to every single lyric, but they can't remember what you taught them yesterday in your classrooms. But hopefully when we make episodes of learning happen, they tend to remember things better. Okay, so we're going to play some music. You're going to mix around the room. When the music stops, I'm going to ask you to pair up with the person closest to you. Not the person across the room who you ate lunch with, whoever's closest to you, because this will happen whether you are dealing with, especially if you're dealing with adults, because we've done this with other teachers who are probably the worst culprits. You don't want to do a drive-by. In other words, you go, not you, oh, I'll work with you. Or you have me and my leader, so you'll see them following each other, and when the music stops, then they, oh, look at that. So try not to do that. You've got to let go of your inhibitions today. I know we're taking you way out of your comfort zone, and pair up with the person next to you, and then we'll give you the next instruction. Okay? Want to add to it? Okay. If you don't have a partner, can you just raise your hand, and then if the rest of the room can direct somebody to somebody else to make a partner, and then we'll check if we've got groups of 3. Try not to work in a 3, try and work in a 2. If you don't have a partner, just raise your hand and we'll help you. Okay, so if I can ask you to stand and use the whole room, not just your little personal space. Okay, so now you've got a whiteboard. I'm going to ask you while you're standing there to just divide your, Lil's going to draw on the screen for you. If you can just divide your answer board into 2 like that. Landscape or portrait, doesn't matter. And label the one side number 1 and label the other side a number 2. Okay, and while you're doing this, just try and see if you can link your mind back to how it is you might use this in your space. Whether you're a leader, a corporate funder, a teacher, an administrator, these structures can be used in any space. Okay, so we've got our boards labeled. I'm going to pass over to Lil, who's going to tell you what the next part of a mixed pair share is.
Okay, great. So if we have a look at step 4, you've paired up, you've all got your pairs, and now it's my job to ask a question. So I'm going to ask you a question, and at this point as a teacher, I've got a choice. If I ask a question that has multiple responses, I'm going to use a structure called a Roundrobin. If I'm going to ask a question that's sort of open-ended and there's time to share, it's got a lengthy answer to it, we're going to use a time pair share. We're going to model both for you. So for now, we're going to do a timed pair share. So if I can just ask you, with your partner, just spread out. Just spread out a little bit. You can face your partner just so that you know who's who. All right, perfect. Okay. So first of all, did you say hello to your partner? Our students always forget that. Okay, I've got a group of 3 at the back. Okay, it's good because I often find we go to training and then we have these even numbers and then teachers go back to their classrooms and they go, what do I do with my extra student? So it's good that we've got a group of 3. So what would happen is at that point you'll have one person left with a hand up and then the closest pair will be like, come join us. But you have to make sure that it only happens at the end. Otherwise, you end up with like 4 groups of 3, and that's not what we want. All right, so a time pair share is that I'm going to ask a question, and then you're going to have some time to share your answer. So this is the question that I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to give you some think time. The question is, what is your dream job? Here's the catch. It can't be in education. I don't care how much you love being in education. This is an opportunity to dream outside of where you're at, your dream job. So what is your dream job? Not in education. Qualifications do not matter. Money does not matter. If you could do anything, what would it be and why? Okay, so for example, if I could do anything, I would love to build tree houses. Why? Because I absolutely love climbing trees, even though I am no longer 6. And the other important thing is I would love to live with the world rather than simply take out the world in order for us to live in it. So that would be my reason why. So what I want you to do now is on your boards in column number 1, just sort of belly your board so your partner can't see, and you're going to have some think time. You're going to have about 30 seconds to share. So you're looking for about 30 seconds worth of information. What is your dream job? Not an education. What is your dream job and why? So you've got some time to just think and write down some ideas in column 1. Column 1, side 1. Okay, you've been able to jot down some ideas there. All right, what we're going to do now is we need to decide who's A and who's B. So if you have a look at my 2 pairs, sorry, I'm over here now, but if you just have a look on the screen, we have to work out who's an A and who's a B because who's going to share first. So person A and person B. Person A is going to be the person whose birthday is earliest in the year. So just work out who that is, and then person A, wave at me. Okay, person A, don't forget to wave at me so I can make sure that you know who's A and B. Okay, so you've got your A's, you've got your B's. Person A, you have this very rare opportunity to talk for 30 seconds, okay, and you're going to share your answer. And person B, you are going to listen attentively. So what does that mean? Look at this girl's face. Isn't it wonderful? Smiling, eye contact, okay, really engaging. Person A, you've got a full 30 seconds to share. Okay, if person A runs out of things to say, and that happens because not all of us can fill 30 seconds easily, okay, person B, it's your job to ask questions. Tell me more about so-and-so, whatever the case may be. It's not your chance to jump in there and take over the 30 seconds. We want everybody to own their time. So person A, are you ready to share for 30 seconds your dream job and why? And person B, you listening attentively? Thank you. Listening attentively and asking questions if they run out of things to say. Go for it. Did you explain the high five? Okay, so just wait. We had a very interesting moment. Gail just now said, "Oh yes, cooperative learning classrooms get noisy," and then she made a joke, and then she forgot to tell you what we do with that. So how do we cope with that? So a management tip for your classrooms is you need a quiet signal. Oh, we got lots of dream jobs here. It's fabulous. All right, so we're going to come up with our quiet signal. It's one that we just use. We can't sort of change it. I'm going to raise my hand and I'm going to say high five, please. When you hear me say high five, please, I want you to do 3 things. The first thing is that you're going to stop talking, stop writing, stop whatever it is that you're doing, okay? The second thing that you're going to do is you're actually going to raise your hand because that's a visual clue for other people to stop talking. So everybody raises their hand. And then the third thing is you're going to have attention to the front. So teachers, you will all have some kind of quiet signal that you use in your classroom. But that's what we're going to use now. All right. But that was great. Person A, you shared for 30 seconds. You put yourself out there. So person B, please turn to person A and say, thank you for sharing. High five, please. Ah, great. And we usually want a quiet signal to take about 3 to 5 seconds for effect. So that was brilliant. Okay, the reason that we have that idea of person B responding, it comes back to that brain research. We need to show appreciation because if we feel appreciation, then the brain naturally responds better. Okay, so person B, you now have an opportunity to share. But what do I have? A group of 3. So what do I need to do? And this is how you manage your groups of 3. Person B, it's your lucky day. You don't only have 30 seconds to share about your dream job. You've got 40. Where's my team of 3? Person B and person C, you have 20 seconds each. Please, will you just watch the time? And after 20 seconds, you'll switch. All right, so person B, are you ready for your 40 seconds? Person A, You're listening attentively, and you're asking questions if they run out of things to say. Go for it. Okay, person A, please turn to person B and say, your dream job sounds amazing. My favorite part of this workshop is whatever tone I put into the response, I always hear it in your response. It's fabulous every time without fail. Okay, well done. That was great. So that's a time pair share. Now, of course, we used a fun question for you guys to get to know each other, but could we replace this with any question? Could we replace this with any kind of thinking question that we want our students to think about? Impacts, any kind of open-ended question. And again, to come back to that idea of, well, what just happened? I could have asked that question, and we could have called on 1 or 2 or 3 people to share their answers, all right? But what happened is we come back to this idea of simultaneous interaction. And how that works is we say, okay, if I were to take a snapshot, if I were to take a picture at any one given moment during that activity, what percentage of the room was talking or writing? I'm asking. 50%. Okay, so that we want to maximize that engagement as much as possible. All right. And when simultaneous interaction is present, students feel engaged. Okay, so that's the idea. The other thing that's really important is this idea of equal participation. So did I give you equal time or equal turns? Okay, I gave you mostly both, okay? 40 seconds, some of you might be a bit shortchanged, 20 seconds, but for the most part, you each had a chance to share. Everybody had a chance to share. And when this is present, then students start to feel equal status. They start to feel like my opinion matters. Okay, just as much as yours. So that's a really empowering tool. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to carry on with our mixed pair share. So you know how the mixed pair share works. But if I were to just say, play the music and say, mix again, would your students just mix, or would they say goodbye to your partner? They just mix. So what I want you to do now is when I play the music, I want you to say thanks to your partner, cheers, and then mix around the room until we say pair up again. So off you go. Raise your hand if you don't have a partner. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand up high. Raise your hand up high. If you don't have a partner, if you have a partner, keep your hands down. You are sorted. Okay, there we go. Wait. Are we still one? There should be one person. Okay. Oh, no. Here we go. Okay, so does everybody have a partner? Did we lose somebody? Oh, someone just left the room. Okay. What's also important here, and what we always tell our students, is it's all very great. Once you found your partner, that's great. But then as a class job, it's the class job that everybody finds a partner. Because there could be somebody on this side of the room, a really short person, usually me, and someone on that side of the room, and they can't find each other. So it's a class job is that everybody helps. Okay? That's the idea behind it. It's not like, yeah, I got my partner, we good. Yeah, I'm good, I'm done. That idea is trying to get everybody to help. So everybody's got a partner. You can spread out a little bit. Did you say hello to your partner? Good. Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right. Loving those social skills. High five, please. Yeah, it's always the back. But we get there slowly. All right. Okay, so we paired up, and now it's my turn. Teacher asks the question. So I've modeled a time pair share for you. So I'm now going to model a rally robin, and that's a different type of question. So this is the structure and how it works. A rally robin is that teacher asks the question. I'm going to ask the question first. No, I'm going to explain the structure. So rally robin, if you think of like I've got a ping pong ball up there, but if you think of like a tennis match, a rally, it's back and forth and back and forth between two people. Okay, so rally. A robin is a little bird. So the way that I remember it is a little bird likes to talk. So a rally robin is a talking rally robin. There we go, back and forth. Okay. Usually short answers. So it's whenever you ask a question where you can make a verbal list in your mind. So I'm going to ask a question, and I want you guys to think. I'm going to give you some think time. And in box 2, I want you to write down the following. What are the qualities of a good teacher? So just start writing in that box 2. So this is solo time, think time. You don't have to show your partner now. What are the qualities of a good teacher? All right, you should have some ideas down on your page now. We're going to now do a rally robin, all right? So with your partner, A and B, one of you is going to share an answer. So one person shares an answer, then the other person shares an answer. Then one person shares an answer, then the other person shares an answer, and back and forth. If you run out from the bottom of your list, that's okay. You guys can keep going. Give each other some think time. So you're going to rally robin. What are the good qualities of a teacher? Back and forth until I tell you to stop. I have to work out who's going to go first. So the person who's going to start is the person who has the most letters in their name. In your first name. In your first name. If you're equal, use your surnames. If you're still equal, figure it out. Okay, high five, please. I think I gave you too many instructions all at once. So, do we know who's starting? We've established who's starting. Perfect. Okay, so you don't have to write anymore. You're now just verbally sharing back and forth one idea at a time and starting with the person who's starting. One idea, one idea. Is that a question? Or no, that's fine. That happens all the time. All right. Okay, so go for it. Back and forth, rally robin. Qualities of a good teacher. All right, so that was fabulous. Thank you. All right, so let's just quickly come back to that idea of what happens here. So if I were to look at, and I can't remember, here, this idea of positive interdependence, okay? Positive interdependence is, does one doing well help others? So did you hear an idea that you hadn't thought of? Okay, so that helps others, okay? That's really important. And the other question is, did it stimulate further? So did you hear something that that triggered another thought for you? Okay. So that idea of positive interdependence, that gives us idea of students are starting to feel like, Gail spoke about it earlier, on the same side, and that they need each other. So now suddenly we have cooperation in a way that we don't necessarily have when we say, okay, discuss, turn to your partner and talk about this. That idea of giving that idea. Okay, so let's, for a moment, Gail, are we going to... Yes, but can I just check for my team of 3? Do we have one? I've lost track. Are there any teams of 3s? They've gone to the bathroom. Okay, that's fine. So we've got pairs. All right, so what I'm going to ask you guys now to do...
Okay, our next one. I often use this next one. It's called a pairs pair. If I just want a random group to be formed, and for them not, I don't know if any of you in the room have problems with putting people into groups, even adults. It's quite a difficult process because people will tend to work with who they want to, and then some groups are dysfunctional, other groups fight, it just becomes a drama. So what we do is a pairs pair. So all I want you to do is just as a pair, just turn to each other and say, don't leave me. Okay? All right. Then, high five, please. Then I just want you to find another pair closest to you and make a group of 4. Off you go. Oh, we need one brave soul. Okay. Lilian's going to explain this too. So if this happens in a group where you have a lost pair or a pair that doesn't have another pair, there's a way to sort that out.
Okay, so you could make a team of 6, that would be, but then it makes your life a little bit difficult. So what we asked to do is either to create a team of 6 and then split into 2 teams of 3. So we're going to have 2 teams of 3, and you seat those tables next to each other, because when you're doing pair work, so if you're doing a teamwork, you're in a team of 3, but if you're doing a pair work, then you've got one person that pairs across from the side. We're giving you a lot of information quite quickly. Usually we do this in a whole day. So can I please ask for this team of 6 to split into 2 teams of 3? All right, so we've got 2 teams of 3 over here. Thanks.
Fantastic. Okay, so what we do now is, can you just move your group away a little bit so that you've got your own space as a group, other than you're not all on top of each other? Okay. So you've been, prior to this grouping, you've been working as a class. So you've been working as a whole group. We call that class building, which we'll come to later. But now we've put you into a random grouping. And that can be uncomfortable, and for some, and a lot of children, unsafe. A lot of adults, unsafe. You might be feeling marginally unsafe at the moment because you're standing with random people you don't know. So we try and do something that creates safety. And the first one we're going to do today is something called a single round robin. So a single round robin still means that it goes around the group, but the question will go around the group one time. That's the single, and the round robin just means the talking as individually, but everyone in the group will get a chance. This is how it works. I'm going to assign you a task, and your task is this, and each of you will take a chance. It will take a turn at responding to the task. So your task is, you need to tell your group your name, your full name. For some of us, that's quite a challenge. And we have long names. I luckily only have a second name. Lil, do you have a second name? I won't ask you what it is because we have some embarrassing ones. Where are you originally from? And what do you like to do in your free time? So, for instance, mine would be, my name is Gail Sarah Murray. I'm originally from the beautiful town of Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape. And in my free time, yay, do I have another Eastern Caper? There's always one in a room, and we're the friendliest people usually. And what do you like to do in your free time? I like to binge watch Netflix. In fact, I've been doing that. Hence why my voice at the end of this will be sore, because I've just been staring at a screen for 5 days. So that would be mine. So I'd have a turn. The person next to me will have a turn, and so on and so on. But we need to decide who starts. So starting this one is going to be the person whose head is closest to the ceiling in the group. Okay, high five, please. Okay, has every group decided who's the tallest? All right, then it reverts to that person's left. So we start with the tallest, and then we go to the person's left, and everyone will have a chance to share their information until it has gone once around the group. If I could ask you to turn and face me as a group when you finish, so that I know when your group has finished. Okay, so starting with the tallie in the group, 3 things, off you go. If you could just face me when you've finished. We've got some groups who are sharing lots of information. All right, thank you. I see most groups are finished. If you could just hold your group, whoever you're working with, hold them accountable to a time frame, because sometimes this can go on forever. So remember, just 3 things to share. You're not commenting about those 3 things. You're not entering into stories. You're just sharing 3 things. I know that's difficult for some of us. We're teachers who like to talk about ourselves all day long. All right, so that's for you to get to know each other. So the next, and hopefully that creates just a little bit of safety, because Lil mentioned once safety is present in a group or in a class, kids are more likely, or adults especially, are more likely to take risks. And that can be as simple as answering a question, raising a hand, engaging in a thought, which, you believe it or not, a lot of our children in our classrooms don't do at all in a whole day. So the next thing we're going to do is something we call a pack and stack. So now that we've put you into new teams, congratulations, you're a team for the rest of the afternoon. So you can turn to each other and say, I'm so glad to be working with you. All right, so this is how, I can see high fivers, and that's the group of 6 who are about to have a very rude awakening that they maybe aren't the team that are going to be together. Okay, so a pack and a stack works like this. Lil's going to play us some music. You're going to go back to take your whiteboards and your pen with you. Go back to where you were sitting. Collect all of your belongings, so your bags or whatever you had. Take your whiteboard with you and move your chair. As a group, you need to be sitting on a chair each and make a small circle. So you need to pick up a chair and your personal belongings. You can do it in 2 or 3 trips. And make a new space somewhere in the room. You've got lots of space. Okay, so we've been doing a lot of engaging with each other over the last half an hour or so. But we've done it as a class. In other words, that's what we call class building, whereas you as individuals have been moving around the group, getting to know each other, sharing information, thinking about questions. But what we're going to do now is something we call team building. In other words, that's when you're working as part of a team. So if you ever visit, and you're more than welcome to visit Lilian or my classrooms at any point, you'll see that our classrooms are set up much like this. Our kids work in clusters full time. I never teach in a classroom where they sit in rows. I find it quite disturbing. It takes me back to my school days where I was a shocking student. But our kids will work in environments like this, even in Lilian's space where she has computers everywhere. So team building and class building creates safety. In other words, we keep going back to that. In the broader context of South African education, I do understand that the large majority of children coming to our schools arrive at school traumatized. So we have to create classrooms in which there is an element of safety, and that can be physical safety, emotional safety, but we're talking about creating a safe space for you to think and share. So you'll see that Lilian has given you what we call a manage mat, and this is a brilliant management tool, and again, we can share this with you if you're interested in it. Even the school leaders in the group, when you're running meetings, it just keeps you in control of the group. So you'll see there are 4 numbers on the group, on the team mat. If you can just make sure that you understand which number are you. So put the mat on the floor in front of you in such a way so that you can identify with a number. So can all the number 1s, can you raise your hands for me, please, if you're a number 1, so I can see all my number 1s? Can all the number 2s raise your hands, please? Where are my number 2s? Does everyone understand? Number 3s, can you raise your hands? Thank you. And number 4s, can you raise your hands? Where's my team of 3? Haven't sorted it out. Okay. All right, so we'll fix that when it happens, Lil. Also, if you notice on your manage mat, there's also an A or a B. Can you see, are you an A or are you a B? Okay, and this will help because you will have noticed Lilian and I used who's the tallest, who's got the shortest name. Now, if you use a manage mat, you don't have to have those examples at your fingertips. You can say A's start first if you're doing partner work. You don't have to worry too much about that. So identify, please, if you're what your number is and if you're an A or a B. That will help us to keep your groups managing. All right. Lilian has also given you what we call a team tub. And in that tub are some pens and Post-its. I'll tell you why. Here is our parking lot. So in a cooperative learning classroom, we do obviously deal with questions one-on-one. But in the interest of time in this workshop, if you have a question, just jot it down on a Post-it and just come and put it on our parking lot, and we'll show you how we'll deal with that at a later point. Otherwise, if we take individual questions, we can run over time, and I do understand people have lives and need to get out of here on time. So that's just a little bit of management from us. Okay, we're going to go on now to a brilliant structure. It's called numbered heads together. Those are my little cherubs in my classroom. And a numbered heads together structure is a team builder. In other words, you're working together as a group to reach consensus, to critically think through a problem, to solve a problem, to work. I've seen it used in a variety of ways. But I'll show you how we're going to use it today. This is how it works. So we now know that everyone in the group has a number, and you know what your number is. The next thing is I'm going to pose a problem to the team and give you some think time. Okay? The problem you have is this. If you're appointed as the Minister of Education tomorrow, what 3 things would you implement immediately? In other words, our friend Naledi Pandor sometimes has done some incredible things. But if you were the Minister of Education, what would you do immediately? Here's your think time. Don't write anything yet. Okay? Just think it through. Okay, now, before we do this, I'm sorry to do this to you, can you erase your boards? There's a little eraser in your team tabs. I'm sorry, that's my problem. Erase your boards from the last activity. There are little round erasers that you can use in your team tabs. Team of 5, do you all know which number you are? Because it might have changed according to that mat. All right, so now you've got your whiteboard ready to go in front of you. Your question is, what 3 things are you working on immediately as Minister of Education? I just want you to jot those ideas down on your board. Don't discuss them with your group. Don't show your group. You're working solo. Off you go. All right, so I'm going to stop you there in the interest of time. You may just have one, and that's fine. The next part of a numbered heads together is that I'm going to tell you to put your heads together. And when I say that, if I was working in my classroom, the kids have to literally lift their bums off their chairs and lean in. But I do understand that you don't have desks, so I'm just going to ask you to, when I say heads together, all it means is that what you have to do as a group, just trying to get my next slide, is you start to discuss as a team. You share, you talk about your ideas, and you try and reach consensus about what are your top 3 things. Okay, so once you all agree, and everyone in the group needs to understand and agree. So I'm actually going to ask you to stand in this. When I call heads together, you're going to have to stand as a group, okay, and talk to each other, reach consensus about what are your top 3 things, okay, as a group. Once you have all reached consensus, you sit down so that I can see who's finished. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. So you're going to, when I call heads together, you're going to stand up and start the process, and then you're going to erase your boards and sit down. And it's very important that you erase your boards once you have finished and you've sat down. All right, so here we go. Heads together. Stand up and let's start. All right, can I just remind you, once you've agreed on your top 3, can you sit down, please, so that we can show you the next step? Try and agree. I know it's hard, but agree. And erase your boards. Okay, high five, please. All right, can I check, has everyone erased their boards? Erase your boards, please, because your group should have decided and agreed, and everyone understands what you've agreed upon. Erase your boards, please. You can stop writing and adding and rub it out instead. Makes us feel uncomfortable. Okay, so the next part of a numbered heads together is now where we start to share, because we need to know, you need to know as a leader or a teacher, is what is on those boards. What did they talk about? Because otherwise they could be talking about where they're going on the weekend and not the activity. Because trust me, that will happen too. Okay, so now we get to the point where I will be calling on one. And that might say to you, you might be thinking, but that's not safe to be calling on one. That's not cooperative. But because in your groups you have reached consensus, everybody should be comfortable with what the group has decided, even the little shy ones. So I'm going to ask the number 3s to stand, please. All the number 3s, can you stand? Okay. Can I ask the number 3s to write on your board now that one of the things you decided on as a group, just one. Just write it. Don't collaborate with your group. You group, stop helping number 3s. The number 3s are on their own writing. Okay, so you should have one thing on your board. Now I'm going to call on a number 3 who's going to share with us. Okay?
We've got one that says sanitary pads for girls that cannot afford them.
Okay, so we are saying that in schools, the Minister of Education would say that there's free sanitary wear for girls who can't afford them. Are we all in agreement or not? Any flatties? Okay, thank you, sir. Can I ask this gentleman over here your number, or what did you decide?
We decide on salary increment.
I like it. But give this gentleman a drink. Okay, thank you. Can I ask this group over here?
We decided on improvement of learning structures, so better classrooms, better furniture, stuff like that.
100%. So better facilities in all schools. Big thumbs up, I can imagine. This lady over here.
To open teacher training colleges and continuous learning for teachers and staff.
100%. Teacher training colleges. Back in the day, we used to have one just here, Grootstad, just across the road. We have JCE just up the road. We had a lot down in KwaZulu-Natal that were excellent centers of learning and continuous teacher training. Fabulous. Can I ask this gentleman over here?
Radical changes in the curriculum.
Radical changes in curriculum management. Can we throw out the curriculum, this group even said? There's some of us that went through the OBE trauma, any of us in the room, and that went out the window. So we can do it again and recover. Okay, thank you. All right, can you see how the numbered hints together can all of you engaged with the question to start with? Then we get some feedback and we can encourage further discussion. So thank you. You can all sit down. Thank you. In your classrooms, also make sure that every group gets a chance to feedback. Otherwise, you're going to get kids that will feel like they aren't heard and aren't equal in status. But in the interest of this afternoon's time, I did cut it short. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Lil to wrap us up.
So just quickly, that idea of having a look at the pies there, I mean, I think in that experience you can kind of really see where those pies fit into the structure. And what's great about it is you watched Gail, she followed the steps. If you follow the steps, what makes Kagan Cooperative Learning great is where all those principles are embedded in every structure. So I, as a teacher, don't have to be thinking about, am I making sure that there's equal? Am I making sure that everybody is accountable for something? So in that, everybody had individual accountability. What were you accountable for? You were accountable for your answer. Who were you accountable to? You were accountable to your team when you had to stand up and put your heads together. So just having a look at that. And just coming here now to the end to kind of wrap things up is just looking back at this initial slide and asking, did we kind of get a chance to experience this? So did you kind of feel that you had a chance to experience some of those 21st century skills yourself? Okay, did you feel that your brain, your neurons were fired? Were you engaged? Did you feel that kind of sense? Were we able to build safety within just about an hour or so? So within an hour of a room of people we don't know, building some sense of safety to be able to engage. And then again, do you sort of start feeling like you're understanding even, I mean, this is a 5-day over thing and we do this for a day, but really understanding the difference between cooperative learning and group work is this idea of pies, and that if I've got these 4 things present, it's cooperative learning. It isn't just group work. So just that kind of sense, and then that idea of, okay, well, how did I feel in a room of cooperative learning? What did that feel like? What is that opportunity for my students to feel like?